if I'm authentic to myself and write about my experiences or other people's experiences sometimes, because I do write about, kind of like these situations that make me think, anything that makes me think. So be it kind of therapy in the moment, like especially that EP, the way that I wrote those songs was very much like, let me sit down at the piano, see what happens. And it was always when something was happening in my life that I just like needed therapy. And I was like, okay, well, let's gonna flow through a song.
From NCPR, welcome to Northwards. People, ideas, and conversations from and about Northern New York, Vermont, and beyond. I'm Mitch Teich.
Support for the Northwards podcast comes from the J.C. Steiniger and M.E. McDonald Charitable Fund at Adirondack Foundation in support of the Adirondack Foundation, building stronger Adirondack communities.
222.
Kentucky. I don't know. I don't know. What are we doing? What are any of us doing?
What are any of us doing? Well, I know what we're doing. We're talking before we hear our interview with a musician named Vitalia. And actually, the interview it was the time before the interview actually started, got me thinking. Ethan Shanty is a producer of this podcast.
This here program.
He joins us before we get into the meat of the show. This is kind of the aperitif. Is it an aperitif? The amuse-bouche?
The mini meatloaf, if you will.
Right. The pigs in blankets of Northwards. Nobody really mispronounces your name, do they?
No, they misspell it a lot.
Which part do they misspell? Shanty.
They misspell, if you can believe it, both parts of my name. Most people don't know my middle name, so they probably misspell that too. But yeah, I get all different variations of Ethan. I think it's a pretty simple. There's not variations on Ethan. Like there's variations on John. There's variations on another name that is similar to John, but is not John. But Ethan traditionally is spelled one way, E-T-H-A-N. But I have, over the course of my 37 years here on this blessed earth, gotten E-A-T-H-E-N, E-A-T-H-I-N, and any variation therein. And then, yeah, a lot of people spell my last name with a Y instead of an I-E, which is a lot more understandable.
Yeah.
But that actually is, well, can I go on a little bit of a tangent here? I'm going to do it.
That's kind of what we're all about here.
Because I could edit it if I wanted to, but I'm not going to because I call the shots here. Our family's last name actually used to be spelled with a Y, but there was some kind of blood feud that caused one section of my relatives to separate, probably forcibly, from the other half of our relatives. So it used to be spelled with a Y, and then
it's like the Hatfields and the Hatfielders.
Exactly, like that. And so, yeah, we became the IEs, and my whole life I grew up thinking that the Ys, the shanties with a Y, were the aggressors, but I realized as I get older it was probably us.
How many generations ago did this happen?
I don't know, a couple. I'm not really sure.
So there aren't. So you don't like there aren't like SHANTYs out there that you'd know, or are there?
The thing is, so again, I said that I realized that my family was probably like the aggressive side. I don't know most of my relatives. Like I've gone to a couple of family reunions, but nobody has ever really kept in touch. And my family's just kind of like, they're not people. You know what I mean?
We have our IEs, and that's all that matters.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's my digression.
Well, I, as you might imagine, I get a lot of misspell. It amazes me that people misspell Ethan, though.
Right? Isn't that weird?
You probably got the same email from, I think it was the Social Security office. They send out the list of the most popular names in America, and Ethan is like the number 4 boy name in 2025.
Which is so weird because
it was not 37 years ago.
No, when I was growing up, I was the only Ethan in my entire school the whole time that I went there, such that like if I was in public and I heard someone say the name Ethan, I assumed that it was for me. But yeah, it's definitely gotten more popular, and I take personal offense to it. But yeah, do you get misspellings of your name or
I get misspellings of my name all the time.
And mispronunciations too. You get Mitch Titch a lot, right?
I get Mitch Titch a lot. Sometimes I get Mike Teich. I mean, I think the problem with being named Mitch is that people read the M-I and then they turn their brain off for the rest of the name. Like they think oh, here's an MI name. It's got to be Michael or Mike.
Uh-huh.
And it would have been unusually cruel for my parents to have named me Mike Tyke or Mitch Titch.
I was gonna use an even crueler word and call them like that's like William Carlos Williams. What were his parents thinking? Why'd they do that?
There was a baseball player when I was growing up named John Henry Johnson.
Oh, why would they do that? What is like?
Maybe they thought they were gonna call their kid, Henry.
Maybe. We're certainly in an era of like tragedy names, where maybe I should stop before I offend people. We're certainly in an era of unique names, and I don't want to be one of those old guys up on my soapbox like, what happened to Mike? Good old American names like John and Henry and Stuart.
You're looking at your watch like the answer is on your watch.
I just don't want to prattle on about this for too long. Have everybody think that I'm some sort of bigot.
All right. Well, I'll save you and say yes. People mess up my name all the time.
Okay.
And the first name, I guess it's understandable that some people might glaze over after they see the MI. But my first name is Mitch, and my last name. So my family has always pronounced it Tyke.
I'm still laughing at Mike Tyke.
It's a German name.
Uh-huh.
It means pond.
Oh, you know what's funny? When I look at you, that's the very first thing that I imagine.
That's why my eyes water so much.
Okay, Mitch Pond.
Yes, and so if you were to go to Germany, as I did a little over a year ago, Germany and Austria and other places where they speak the German, you would find out that it's actually pronounced Teich.
Oh, okay.
Which I can understand when the family moved to this country that
Right. They wanted to anglicize it.
They wanted to anglicize it because it was really difficult to say.
Yeah.
The sound is just not something that we do a lot in English. So if you said Teich, people would think, is he blowing his nose? What's going on? So Tyke it has been.
Yeah. My friends, one of my best friends, Jeff, his last name is Lazarus. It's a Polish name, so it's spelled with a lot of Z's and stuff. Almost no vowels in his name. An abundance of C's and Z's. So when I met him, he said, my name is Jeff Lazarus. And he was like, I guarantee you cannot spell it. And to this day, I've known him for like 8 years. One of my best friends in the world. I still cannot spell his last name. And that's a me problem. That's not a him problem. But then a couple years ago, he said, I actually learned that my name is pronounced Wishash. So please call me Jeff Wishash. And I said, I'm not going to do that because we're best friends and I can say whatever I want to him.
Well, so this all came to mind because I interviewed this woman, this singer-songwriter. She is Ukrainian-Canadian.
Okay.
She's from Canada. She lives in Montreal or the Montreal area. And her first name is Vitalia, which fairly, pronounced just like it's spelled.
Yeah.
Her last name is spelled Khmil. She performs just under the name Vitalia, and you'll hear, we chatted a little bit about this before we got rolling in the interview, but she pronounces it Camille.
That's how I would pronounce it too.
But much the way my last name would be pronounced Teich, her last name would be pronounced Schmil.
Say that again?
Schmil.
I
came
want to.
out of that conversation thinking, wow, Teich is really easy.
Yeah, Taish and Shanty are pretty simple.
In fact, you could run them together.
Are you proposing?
No.
Oh.
Not proposing.
Hey, Ethan, maybe we hyphenate our names. What do you think?
Just for the purposes of this podcast. Shantaish.
Oh, I got a headache. Okay, so she's a Canadian-Ukrainian musician. What's her deal?
Her deal is she actually graduated, you'll hear this in the interview, recently from Concordia University in Montreal with a degree in jazz.
Oh, okay.
Her stuff is much more pop-focused now. She released some songs earlier in her fairly young career that sounded jazzy. She also did a song in honor of Ukraine after it was invaded by Russia. We'll hear a little bit of that. But the thing that really struck me is there's a point in your career where really the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Where
you can do anything you want.
Yeah. You can sort of see Like you're on an airplane and for some reason you're a skydiver and the door opens and sometime like 10 minutes from now your feet will be on the ground, but you have no perfect idea what it will be like between the time that you jump out of the airplane and the time your feet land on the ground.
Or where exactly you're going to land.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know, as somebody who's been doing radio now for 35 years, it was a nice, refreshing reminder of what it's like to be at a point where you're already starting to live up to your promise, but that could still take you anywhere in the world.
And I love the thought that this is a musician who is using her jazz roots to influence her pop music. Those are my favorite kind of artists who kind of like blend every genre that they listen to. You know, I was talking earlier today about how, you know, my band, when we recorded our last album, we were thinking like, we're writing like a classic rock album, but if you listen to it for the very first time, you would say this sounds like metal. And but you know, it's because at the time we were listening to like a lot of Creedence Clearwater Revival, and that was really influencing our sound. That's cool. I'm excited to hear this.
So let's get to it then. Vitalia, Camille, welcome to Northwards. Thanks so much for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate the time.
So you lead your biography by describing yourself as a Ukrainian-Canadian. How has your Ukrainian heritage shaped your life?
That's a very good question. I mean, I think that where we are born and where our cultural background kind of comes from does shape our environment and who we kind of become. For me particularly, I think that I became a singer in the first place because in the Ukrainian community here in Montreal, we are people who like to sing a lot in community. So I went to Ukrainian school. I went to kind of like these other Ukrainian extracurriculars, and I ended up singing every single Saturday. And I was like, okay, well, what is this? Like, why am I having so much fun? Like, it's such a communal event. And I would go to camp and we would also like learn Ukrainian traditional folk songs. And it just became like this thing that really, I don't know, ignited this flame inside me. So I just carried on throughout my childhood singing. I even got to sing at the Ukrainian festival in Montreal here every year for a couple of years when I was a kid. And that kind of ignited the flame for me. I was like, okay, I love being on stage. I love singing. I love music. I love the fact that I get to harmonize with my friend because we were kind of had like this duet going on. And that's kind of how it all started. And when I think of other Ukrainian elements that influenced me, for sure, the Ukrainian patriotism that I've kind of been instaured with has led me through my life to have certain values and standards. And I do feel like Ukrainians are go-getters. Like, we fight for what we want. And in this career especially, it is a career that's pretty hard. Hard in the sense that you have to fight for what you want, you have to keep going, and you have to accept the fact that the only way that you won't make it through something is if you yourself stop fighting. So I kind of feel like that's something that's always been part of it, because part of our Ukrainian history is also rooted in the fact that we've always had to fight for independence.
Well, right. I mean, there's fighting for what you want to do, and then there's literally fighting. And, you know, you sort of flash forward, I don't know, 15, 20 years from when you were a little girl singing at these festivals, and you're making your way as a musician, and then suddenly being Ukrainian, it doesn't necessarily mean something else to you, but it means something else to the rest of the world around you.
100%. Yeah, and I think that it's very important to kind of highlight the fact that this is still happening. You know, the war hasn't stopped, but the only difference is that it's easy for people in the world that don't necessarily know this situation firsthand to say, why don't you guys just like stop fighting? Why can't you stop the war? And it's like, well, unfortunately, Ukrainians can't just stop fighting because we're defending ourselves. So we're defending ourselves from somebody who does have the power to stop. And we need to spread that message around. And I think that that's kind of, yeah, that's what we're here to do. So it does mean something different to the world, but hopefully we can create this bridge across all these things so that we know more about Ukrainians, and we know that the war is still happening and that there's still a lot of things that we can do.
You actually wrote and recorded a song a couple of years ago in support of what Ukraine has been going through.
Yes. Yeah, I actually wrote it exactly when the war was kind of starting, and I released it a year after that because I wasn't even sure I had the guts to kind of put it out because it was so vulnerable, and it's I knew that it wasn't the artistic direction I wanted to go with as an artist, and I was just starting out, so I was scared that it would kind of taint the way that people would perceive me because I am Ukrainian, it is part of my identity, and I think that I published it and I was like, no, no, I really need to get this out. I feel like it was kind of therapeutic in a way as well to kind of release it and have it out for others to listen to.
Sky of blue, I'm wanting to release me from my pain. Light my soul, I'll sing away my sorrows till I'm broken, scarred and healed again.
A song can mean so many different things and people can interpret it the way that they want. So I hope that some people do the research about like the poetry that's in there in regards to the visual thing that I kind of mentioned. Like, I mentioned the sky that's blue, the wheat that's yellow, kind of the colors of our flag, but also the Ukrainian, like one of the Ukrainian armies that we had in the past's flags that's red and black. So yeah, I just hope that people go listen to that song and kind of do their research in regards to all that imagery.
Well, and it does sound a lot different than just about everything else that I've heard that you've recorded. It's also probably a good segue to how your musical career has evolved. So Land of Black was kind of an outlier, but your singles that you were recording around that time were tinged a little bit, maybe a lot by jazz. Was that the direction you were originally thinking your career would go in?
So I do have jazz training. I did just graduate from Concordia probably a month ago now.
Oh, congratulations.
I submitted my last assignment. Thank you. And so I definitely got into music thinking, okay, I don't know what I'm kind of doing. Like when I got into music school, I was like, let's see where this kind of takes me. So I started off with doing a year in classical, which technically, like I'm learning classical theory, but I had a teacher that was teaching me jazz. And I just realized how much I loved jazz through that, switched over and did my whole bachelor's in jazz after all. So I am jazz trained, but I do have to admit that I've always have had this soft spot for pop. Like even as a kid, I was like, oh my God, pop is just so, it's there. People connect to it easily. It has a message to spread. And, like there's all different kinds of pops. Like there is that cheesy kind. And, sometimes we have to give into that guilty pleasure and listen to some of that. But I just figured I had something calling me towards pop. So I figured, okay, I do love jazz. I'm trained in this. So how do I kind of incorporate both these things to go together?
It's been a while since I've seen your face. Makes me wonder if you were ever worth the chase. I don't even think about you no more. Since you decided to walk out that door. I used to care about you. Now I'm living life without you. Can't believe it's true. I just say you want the news, and I thought to myself, I'm so glad I'm over.
Are there jazz musicians out there that have especially inspired you over the years?
One of my go-tos, I think it's, a classic. Listening to Ella Fitzgerald always gets me going because she just has this like I don't care vibe, this energy when you listen to like the live recordings. She forgets the lyrics and she just keeps on inventing lyrics on the spot. So not only does she improvise melodies and like the rhythm and everything is super precise, but then she also invents lyrics on the spot. So that I find insane. Sarah Vaughan has incredible paraphrasings. And Veronica Swift, one that's kind of active right now, I absolutely love her. Veronica Swift has amazing interpretations of every single song. I think she's been kind of at it since she was a kid as well, but like she's been into jazz her whole life, so it's definitely a different ball game too. It's like, one of those people that you're like, wow, how do you get to that level? Like it's inspiring, but it's also like scary, like, damn, like who Anyway, so she's one of those people that's, going at it right now and that I find amazing. Yeah.
Just another 10,000 or 20,000 hours of work.
Exactly.
Your EP that just recently came out, definitely much more in the pop realm. You wound up on my radar because I heard your song Molly on one of the CBC stations that we can hear on this side of the border when I occasionally turn off my own radio station. When you put together a collection of songs, especially when it is your first EP, do you have a sense that one song will be the one that gets the attention?
You know what? I didn't think that there would be one song in particular that necessarily would. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. I do think that you get a certain intuitive feeling about specific songs. For me, Molly was written in such a quick way. It was so quick, it was so intuitive the way that I even wrote it. Like I wrote it in, I think, an hour. And it was like in one sitting, it just like really flowed. And I was like, okay, let's see where this goes. Met up with the producer, this, that. Knew what I wanted for the vision. I had like specific ideas and I was like, okay, I want guitars here, like kind of coming in. That's kind of the lead. I want a kick bass, like kick drum, sorry, that's there the whole time.
You ignored the messages I sent. You never explained what you meant. You never even paid for it, but you had me with your little accent.
Anyways, I had like specific ideas for this song. Then somehow I ended up talking to some directors that told me, oh yeah, like out of all the songs that you have, this is the one that I want to direct a music video for. So it kind of just ended up happening and evolving naturally throughout the course that this was always a song that flowed very naturally, very easily, which is why I think a lot of people gravitated towards it too. Like you can feel that energy. You don't know why, but you can feel that it's something that was very intuitive, very flowy. And I think that having a visual music video also helps.
You until I'm high. You ignored the messages I sent. You never explained what you meant. You never even paid for it, but you had me with your little accent. 'Cause Molly, I'll never get over you. Yeah, Molly, I cried so many tears over you. Molly, I'll never get over you. Yeah, Molly, I cried so many tears over you.
So yeah, I did have a feeling that it was very poppy. Like it is the most pop-based song that I have. It has a lot of rhymes in there and it does have a very clear story going from A to B. Personally, when I was writing all these songs, like I was in different periods of my life as well sometimes. And I just remember Molly being that clear and precise, but I really love Insecure as well. Like I have a lot of love for all my songs for different reasons, but I feel like I thought that Insecure was going to be the one that people would really love. And it's just because I got it produced a little bit later. It was one of the last songs that was produced out of the EP. And I felt like I had explored a little bit of myself in different ways in every single song. And that at the time of Insecure, I was like, why do we go crazy? Like, I wanna feel like I'm in my head and with those thoughts of like being insecure, and I wanna feel like I'm going crazy.
Friend, but I can't help but feel that you'd want to down her with gin. We break up and make up and then pretend it's meant to be. Yeah, it must be. We blow up and hang up and then I cry. Why don't you go and see? I'm the only one standing in your way. Please let me be released from this pain. I hate that I want you to break things off with me. Am I just too insecure? Or am I just too insecure?
I wanted it to feel kind of Lady Gaga-esque, theatrical and very like, it's the end of the world. and kind of dramatic. So I really had a feeling that Insecure would be something that the song that everybody gravitated towards. But I think it's just one of my favorites because I gave myself permission to explore that part of myself.
It's meant to be, yeah, it must be. We hook up and give up and then I scream. Why don't you go?
How much are you writing for yourself when you put together your songs, and how much are you thinking about the people you hope will connect with what you're writing about?
I think that when I'm in the songwriting process, I don't limit myself. I'm not in the mood to, I'm not in the zone to be thinking of, okay, what are people going to think about this? What is this? That's more of like the post-production process for me. Like I produce things, I want it to have a certain effect. Like I think that, as I mentioned with Insecure, I did want it to feel like it was kind of overwhelming, that it was like scary. There was this energy about it that's kind of haunting. But that was more in the production process that I was thinking about that. And when I'm writing, I genuinely think that if I'm authentic to myself and write about my experiences or other people's experiences sometimes, because I do write about, kind of like these situations that make me think, anything that makes me think. So be it kind of therapy in the moment, like especially that EP, the way that I wrote those songs was very much like, let me sit down at the piano, see what happens. And it was always when something was happening in my life that I just like needed therapy. And I was like, okay, well, let's get to flow through a song. So that's kind of how it happened for me with those songs. But generally speaking, I think that the songs that I write right now, at least, are kind of just like I'll sit down. Sometimes it'll be something about, that therapy that I mentioned, or sometimes it'll be something more like, okay, I witnessed this actual situation in my life. Like I often write little lines lately. So I might be sitting on the subway and I'll see another homeless person on the metro. Like for example, like I think there's so many issues societally that we kind of can address as a singer songwriter. Like those things make me think like, why have we let society come to this point where it's okay to outcast these people? I don't know. There's so many like different issues at hand in general in society. So I think it's like a therapeutic outlet, not only for my love problems, like in this particular EP was, but I think generally speaking, to kind of let out everything that I think about the world. So obviously I do have my own bias, my own lens of all the things that I see that are wrong with the world. And I decide to write about those. But sometimes it's just like a little conversation spark with a friend who tells me about the shitty thing that somebody did. Or I don't know, I'm just thinking about negative stuff because I think that it's easier to write about the negative stuff to a certain extent. But yeah.
Well, and interesting that you think about writing songs as therapeutic because a lot of us listen to songs for the same reason.
I think that that's what's important for a musician to do, like we are the people that are kind of connected enough to be like, okay, what am I feeling right now? And you kind of put it out there and we don't know how people will interpret it, but that's also part of the fun. You don't know how people will interpret it, but you hope that they'll create their own memories, their own stories from it too, because I've been in situations where like I performed at a show and somebody comes up to me after like, did you write this like for me? Because I feel like every single word of that song was like directly related to like this one particular thing that I've gone through in my life. So it's like either it can go to that extent and really reach someone in that powerful way, or maybe it's just like that song that people love listening to when they're on a road trip, or like I like the idea that my songs can be a soundtrack to people's lives, Well, so it can be either therapeutic and actually have an impact heads on, like actually affect people, or just kind of be a background thing. But still, you're creating memories to it. You're listening to it in this specific period of your life, and you'll be like, hey, yeah, 2025, that was the year that I achieved this. And you kind of like correlate and visualize those songs as the thing that kind of sparked those moments in your life.
Well, and amazing to think that you're having this effect on people, and it starts with you alone on the subway or alone at your piano, and like the stuff coming through you, and then ends up touching people in all these myriad of ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of crazy, but I love it. I love it. I love what I do.
Did I see? Are you also a vocal coach for young singers?
Yeah, I have a couple of students right now. One of them is a friend. Like both of them are friends actually. So it's been fun to kind of go through that process as well. Kind of, Yeah, I think I've learned enough in jazz school that I'm able to kind of give some advice now, and it's been a fun journey. It's really rewarding to see people grow and realize, okay, yeah, like I can do this too. It's not just for somebody who's a singer. Like anybody can sing. It's just about the training that you have. So if anyone's hesitating or is listening to this and like, oh well, I can't sing at all. Like I have such a bad voice. No, it's always trainable. There's always a way to train your voice. So if you want to do it, go for it, you know?
Well, I was going to ask about this because, you have lived your whole life with many people probably coaching you along the way, and you have probably learned what you like about some teachers and what you don't like about some teachers. And I would imagine that that shapes how you work with the students you have.
100%. I think that the way that I work with my students is very based on, okay, first of all, what are your goals? Like I think that any teacher should be able to ask those questions of like, what are your goals? Like if it's not the same thing as if you're training to do an audition for like a vocal competition versus you're just learning to use your body the right way to sing versus you're just doing it for fun. Like there's so many different reasons why people can start singing. And one of my students actually is did it because she said that she didn't project enough in life. She's like, yeah, no, I'm like at a bar and like the person that I'm with can't hear me. So it's as simple as that. But it comes from a place of like, okay, well, she wants to develop the skill that can help her in different aspects of life. But then it's like, how do I make it fun? You know, like I think that's something that I've learned from different teachers is like, okay, well, I want to be having fun because if there's so much pressure, I'm not actually going to be performing well. Like when you're stressed, when you're anxious, your body can feel it and you're not going to be performing as well. But it's also managing that as well. So I am trying to make my students comfortable throughout the experience because it is very uncomfortable to be singing and doing these vocal exercises where you have to open up your mouth really wide and you're like, oh, like I'm not used to doing that. Like it's even like I think that singing in general is a very vulnerable thing just because sometimes it shows people the transparency of who you are to a certain extent. I don't know how to explain this otherwise, but when you do vocal exercises and you have a voice crack, it's just something that's very, very intertwined with who you are, I think. It's like it's very interconnected. Like if you think that you're gonna sing well, you're gonna sing well. It's very connected to psychology. If you think that you're a bad singer, then you're not gonna sing as well. That's 100% sure. So I feel like I'm trying to instill this confidence in my students more than anything, first and foremost, because that's what kind of leads you to do the stuff that's fun and kind of sing better in the first place.
Well, and in your case, I mean, you're singing, so you have that level of vulnerability, but you're also singing the songs that you wrote, and the stuff that you write about is often about like the vulnerable parts of who you are. I don't know if that was a question, but
I mean, it does make sense. I do think that it takes a certain type of personality to be on stage to a certain extent because you have to be very comfortable with yourself. You have to be okay with people seeing you a certain way, even though it's not the way that you see yourself. So that's a big thing too. It's like I'm trying to be as authentic as I can be in every context of life, but at the same time, like if I say something and people have this other view of life and have their own lenses, they might think that I tried to insult them, or they might think that I tried to do something that's kind of like see something in a negative light, even though my intention wasn't necessarily negative. So it's okay with it's living within the discomfort or like being comfortable within the discomfort, I think is one of like my mottos in life. And kind of being comfortable with the fact that, yeah, people might not always understand you, might not always see everything the way that you see it, and that's okay. And it's kind of just like, hopefully, as I said, to kind of bring it back to what I was saying earlier, I put the songs out, and then it's like it's other people's job to kind of interpret it. So I like the feeling of having other people connect to it in their own various ways. And if people can, sometimes people have come up to me like, "Oh yeah, so what's Molly about, or what's Insecure about, and that stuff," and I'm like, I have my own reasons for writing it, but you tell me what it means to you, you know? Like I feel like that's more interesting because you're your own person and everybody gets connected in a different way.
how far ahead are you thinking about your career? I mean, because it's like being a writer. You finish writing the book, you go through the editing process, it goes to the publisher. It takes a while. By the time people are reading the book that you've written, I say this as though I'm a published author, which I am not. By the time people are reading what you have written, you wrote it 2 or 3 years ago sometimes, and the songwriting process works the same way. So how far ahead is Vitalia thinking about her career?
Mm. That's a very good question because I do feel like a lot of a lot of singer-songwriters might feel like by the time they actually release the songs that they've been working on for the last couple of years, they're like, well, that's not me anymore. I'm not that person anymore, Which is always really funny because you're like, okay, how do you kind of stay within the flow of, I still have to do promotion on this song, even though I don't necessarily connect to the Vitalia that I was 2, 3 years ago necessarily.
I'm not insecure anymore.
Exactly. So there's so many different things about that I've been thinking about. I am thinking about my career in a very long-term way. Like right now, I'm planning on releasing these house pop songs, which are completely different from this EP, but they're kind of so I feel like the last EP was like my sad girl pop era, and now it's going to be like my hot girl summer era as well. So in that same sense, kind of just like talking about subjects like sexuality, but also bringing them in a light that's very like, I'm not ashamed of this. Women shouldn't be ashamed for their sexuality. Like not just women, just anybody, but it's more like it's about bringing some fun. I did the sad girl thing and now I'm like, no, I want to have fun. That is a different facet of me. I know how to have fun. I am a fun person, I think. I do have moments where I'm insecure, that's for sure. But that's why I wrote kind of like an EP that kind of showed that darker side of me to a certain extent, or like the traumas, the negative stuff. And now it's kind of like, okay, well, this is a little bit more simple, straight to the point, having fun. So that's an EP that I'm planning on releasing kind of like staggering all of this year, a little bit of next year probably, because I'm trying to release them single by single before I release a whole EP. So I don't have like an actual date for the next EP just yet. But single by single. And for 2026, I'm thinking of a rock EP as well, because I have like so many different artists that inspired me throughout my life. And so I think I want to do them justice by kind of having little EPs with different little facets of me, because then it's easier to market as well. So as much as I wanted to like throw single and single and single and then be like, okay, well, this is everything that I've written, I do want it to have like a certain bow to tie it around. Like, I want to tie it up in like one little gift and be like, okay, well, this is my house pop era. And then I'm going to go towards my Paramore side, that rock era. So I'm still figuring it out, but for now I have kind of like the next 2 years musically wise planned out. And then I'll kind of see, because I'm also planning on moving to Spain potentially. So I'm trying to figure out how to make that happen and kind of exploring the musical scene there, because I loved it when I traveled there for like a month last May actually. So I'll see where life takes me. I'm also leaving room for where will life take me, just because I don't know what people will connect with more. Maybe people will love this house pop era and they'll want me to do more of that. And I might not be in the same place, so we'll see. Like I also want to be authentic to myself. So if I'm like, well, I don't want to do more of that, then I have to respect that. But I guess I'll just see where it takes me with every single. I just like find out more about myself, and I've found that living in the present moment helps me figure out things for the future as well.
Well, and it's amazing to think that, you are at the point in your career where really anything could happen.
100%. I've always thought about this. Like, you go to these shows and Carly Rae Jepsen, for example, like, so kind, baby. Like everybody knows that song. And I feel like you go to a festival and you go see her and you're like, oh, well, I need her to play that song because it's so iconic. And it's like there are those songs out there that you will maybe have to sing. Like as you kind of mentioned with Molly, maybe that's going to be the one that everybody also always remembers about me. So it's like, well, no matter what happens in my career, I have to sing Molly at every single show, So that's kind of interesting to think about. I definitely think that there are going to be those surprises along my career of like, oh, I didn't know that people would connect to this. And here they are really connecting to it. So we'll see.
Well, and what's good is that you have the acoustic version just in case that's the direction your career is going.
Exactly.
Makeup is running off your face. Tell me, are you worth the chase? Left me, but
well, it will be fun to watch, and I hope we'll get a chance to talk again. Vitalia, thank you so much. It was really fun getting to know you, and best of luck with everything that comes next.
Thank you so much, Mitch. Thank you for having me.
You never even paid for rent, but you had me with your little accent. 'Cause Molly,
Vitalia. Her full name is Vitalia Camille. She lives in the Montreal area. And her first EP, which has just been released in the last month or so, is called Alone in a Crowd. It was a nice chat with her, and interesting to think about all the various directions that her career could take her.
Yeah, she's going to be releasing a rock album, and I think that's amazing that she's not really content to just sit and languish. Not that she's languishing in the pop mines, but yeah, that she wants to continue exploring her sound, and I think that's pretty incredible. There's a guy who my girlfriend and I really like. His name is Joe. Did you watch the show Stranger Things a little bit? We've had this conversation before.
Not really. I mostly walked in while my kids were watching Stranger Things, and then turned around and walked into a different room.
Okay, so you're a big fan. So this guy on Stranger Things, his name is Joe Keery, and a couple years ago he started releasing music under the name Joe, DJO, and his first album is very like synthwave, like pop music, and I really loved it, and so I was eagerly anticipating his next album, and his follow-up album is all just like not quite yacht rock, but it's definitely inspired by rock bands of like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And so like it's kind of funny. Like each song you can listen to, and you're like, oh, that's a Fleetwood Mac song. That's a Beatles song. That's a Bruce Springsteen song. And I admire artists like that who can continue to change their sound but maintain their voice.
Yeah, exactly. It's about maintaining your voice and not wanting to limit yourself. I mean, you wouldn't want to say somebody who has had a very consistent sound over the course of their, maybe long career has written the same song over and over again.
Right.
But for some musicians, it might feel to them like if I release another pop album, it's just going to be a rehash of the last one that I recorded. And so somebody who's willing to explore the different things that her voice can do for her and her appreciation of different styles of music can do for her, I'm in awe of anybody that can do that, really. Yeah,
and all the power to bands like Motley Crue or Poison or whatever who can basically write the same kind of music and tour on it for their entire lives, but that just doesn't do it for me. And I think that the artists who have the most respect and have the most like real artist longevity are those ones who are willing to explore their sound.
And that is why your punk band is releasing a Gregorian chant album, correct?
You're not too far off base. No, we will not be doing Gregorian chant.
Ethan, who puts this show together?
Northwards is an NCPR podcast production. The show is written, produced, and edited by Mitch Tyke with digital production supervision by me. I'm Ethan Shanty. You can find out more about this program, support the show, and listen to other conversations at ncpr.org/northwards. This is NCPR, North Country Public Radio.